Hi, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the conference so far today. My name is Hannah. I'm with Tenbound, and you are here in Common Mistakes Made by SDRs. We have some great info topics to share with you guys today. So we'll just get started in a second. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, and we will have recordings available pretty quickly after the conference, so you can look forward to that. If you have questions, we'll do our best to answer them. You can enter them in the Q&A in your screen. And with that, I will turn it over to introduce our panel here. Dale Dupree, the CEO and founder of the Sales Rebellion. Do you want to say hi and do a quick overview of yourself here, Dale?
Yeah, no worries. What's up, everybody? My name is Dale Dupree. Shout out to Richard Harris. I'll pay you later. Thanks for that very nice thing that you said in the chat here. I spent 15 years as an individual contributor turned VP of sales in the copier industry, selling a commodity. I recognize a lot of the shortcomings of sales during my time as a leader in that industry and decided to start a sales rebellion. We exist to tear down the castles of mediocrity and build a kingdom of sales rebels across the world. And if you know me, you know that I love creativity. You know that I love the idea of putting people before commission checks by leading with experiences instead of features and benefits and products and services, and just changing the game and the landscape of sales altogether. It's a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you. I love that, Sales Rebels. And we also have Mike Hopkins, VP of Revenue at Seamless. Mike, do you want to say a quick intro of yourself too?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. Excited to be here. So as Hannah mentioned, I'm Mike Hopkins, VP of Revenue here at Seamless.AI. Our company is just on a mission to positively impact 1 billion people by just helping the world connect to opportunity, providing you guys with the cell phones, phone numbers, and insights that you guys need to be successful. Been a sales leader, serial entrepreneur for about 20 plus years. I've sold a lot of different things in my career, and I love Tenbound. I've been here as an SDR, as an AE, and excited to be here as a speaker now as the Vice President of Revenue. So thank you. Awesome.
Love that. The Tenbound proud. Okay, so to kick off, we have some topics here. The first one, SDRs constantly think that they are at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that sentiment. So Dale, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm totally interested in responding to that. I think that what SDRs need to recognize about their role and what it is that they're doing inside of an organization is that they feed it. So let me just kind of explain that for a quick second in a way that I relate to, which is that when I got into sales, I was a full cycle sales rep. So I did everything. I hunted for the account, then I had to nurture that account, then I had to close that account, then I had to manage that account afterwards. The most important piece of that puzzle is that I couldn't nurture the account or manage or close or manage the account without finding the account. And everybody that is in an SDR or a BDR type role or function is extremely important to the rest of the process. There is no sales cycle without this particular individual in this particular role inside of the organization. So I really do think that it's something that SDRs have to take a little bit more pride in, the position itself. They have to understand that they're not at the bottom of the totem pole and shift their mindset into thinking and understanding that they are the thing that provides everybody else with the qualified business that the company's going after to begin with.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with Dale. It's called top of the funnel for a reason, because you're actually at the top. As Dale mentioned, there is no sales cycle. There is nothing without those opportunities that you're generating. If the sales team was a body, you're the heart that pumps the blood through it. So it's a very, very highly coveted role here at Seamless. We celebrate our SDRs daily, because as Dale mentioned, there is nothing without those opportunities. If the top of the funnel breaks or is non-existent, if you don't fill the calendar, or if you fill the calendar with bad meetings or whatever it is, nothing else works after that point. So you should be very proud to be an SDR. That's typically an entry-level role for a new person in sales, but that role is where you're going to learn everything and exhibit those characteristics that are going to take you throughout your entire career. So you should be really proud to have that position.
That's great. The second mistake that we can talk about is leading with expectations of setting an appointment on every dial. Is that reasonable?
It is interesting to me. When I first started in the sales world, my dad used to say, "You're not going to sell them when you meet them for the first time." And we've created this role. So to break it down, we've created this role where the expectation of the person in it is that I have to set appointments. I'm supposed to be calling and setting appointments. And yes, I do recognize that as one of the driving factors of having this particular role in general. But at the same time, SDRs need to understand that they're not going to get every single person to pick up the phone that they're calling on and take a literal appointment with them in that moment. There's going to be people, of course, that are going to hear what it is that you're pitching and selling and be interested and want to learn more. But most of the time, people are not in a state of, let me just stop everything I'm doing to set an appointment with you at this company that I've never heard of, or maybe I have, but I don't understand the reputation of. There's a lot to unpack. Do they have an existing business need at the moment? So the expectation of just getting on the phone and thinking as an SDR in that role that every single dial, that everybody that picks up, that you have to set an appointment with them, is just not good. One of the things that I changed very early in my career around the first touch interactions was that I tried to give people an experience. I tried to build a very professional business friendship with them as well too, and get permission to be able to stay in touch unless there was a need that I could be benefiting around in regards to my product and service that I provided at the moment. But being proactive in those conversations and also leaving my expectation at a lower point so that I wasn't pushy, I wasn't trying to bribe somebody into an appointment. Even I've had all kinds of crazy stuff happen to me in the last 10 years in regards to people trying to sell to me. And one of the biggest mistakes I truly hear people making when they get on the phone with somebody is rushing to this identity of like, can I get 15 minutes on your calendar to set you up with a demo and show you more? And I just don't like it in general. And I also hang out in the groups of CFOs and CEOs and CIOs that don't like it either. And thankfully, I had peers like that when I was coming of age and when I was in the sales world doing my thing that were able to help me to understand I'm not always in the market. I'm not always interested in meeting right now. And I think that just goes back to human behavior as well, too, in general. And that when we're put a task in front of us as achievers and people that want to get something done inside of what it is that we're trying to build from a success standpoint, we're going to go for that goal. We're going to drive toward that goal. We're going to push, we're going to pull, we're going to hit it as hard as we can. But we need to step back for a moment and remember that there's a person on the other side of our goal that actually helps us to get to it in the first place. And that if we push and pull, that we end up manipulating, we end up harming relationships, we end up hurting our reputation, and we end up, not creating something that's sustainable for us in that role in general. Those are my 2 cents.
No, that's awesome, Dale. Dale hit a lot of great points there. Expectations for an SDR should actually, as Dale kind of alluded to, be the opposite. If you're doing a really great job, there's a lot of failure in cold calling and being an SDR. You can make 100 calls, 80 people don't answer. You could take that as 80 failures. If you connect with 20 people and 15 of them don't book a meeting with you, that's 15 failures. So the expectation that you should set for yourself is that it's going to be a lot of hard work and you're going to make a lot of touch points and a lot of calls and a lot of contacts. But the best part about something like that is once you understand those expectations, you go into your day, you know exactly how it's going to go. It's not going to bother you. So you're going to look at it different than being a failure, because once you understand like your conversion rates, you'll know how many calls it takes to talk to someone, how many people you need to talk to book a meeting, what those meetings are worth. And then once you break that down even further, you can reverse engineer any goals that you set for yourself throughout the day with activity. And you know what every dial's worth to you as an SDR. So even if no one's answering the phone, when you know those numbers, you're making money. And you know that you're actually being successful because you're executing this activity. And some of the things Dale talked about as well is you're on the front line for your company. So you are the first person making a contact to this person who's busy. They have things going on. Maybe they had a bad morning, a bad day. Maybe they got yelled at by their boss. So you can't take anything personal when you reach out and connect with someone. And you also want to be professional because you are the first contact point reaching out to this person on behalf of your company. So those are some great points from Dale there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, mistake number 3 is thinking that somehow they need years of experience to be able to do another function within the company.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack here, right? But I'm going to try to just sum this up. I think that a lot of the time we, in this particular role, we kind of lie to ourselves about what is needed in order to get to the account executive position or anywhere else inside of the organization, inside salesperson, whatever it is specifically that we're trying to reach outside of the BDR role. Again, I think this comes back to that mentality of, when we look at the role itself, we think that it's like the bottom of the barrel, and then we have to, like we're the janitor and we got to make our, way up the totem pole. And I think that it's incorrect. I think that very quickly you can prove yourself in 30 to 60 or even 90 days as to just how good you truly are inside of that role. And if you have good leadership that are coaches more than they are managers, that are recognizing your strengths, that are helping you through your weaknesses, that are alongside you in that process, they're first and foremost, they're going to recognize the potential. And if you are looking to advance in your career, being very vocal about that is important, because the more that you're silent, the more you're reactive to those types of things, such as like a position opening up, but you've never really talked about wanting to be outside of the role as SDR, and everybody sees you as really good at it, and that you never really talk about leaving it in the first place. So taking a more of a proactive approach and being more assertive in that role, thinking that I don't need 2 years, I don't need 12 months, I can get to a better place and position inside this organization in 90 days, easy, is the way that you have to be thinking. When my father's company that I worked for was acquired, I became the #1 rep within 90 days. And within a couple of years, I was the VP of sales of the organization. And that's a pretty big ladder that I climbed in order to get there in the course of 24, 36 months, right? Kind of thought process. And if you sit back and you look at that journey, you would have put me at the bottom of the barrel if we're categorizing things. But that's not what truly, like, leadership is truly looking for in regards to the outcomes that they seek. They're not trying to keep really good people in a role that shackles them, or that makes them unhappy, or that eventually burns them out in the first place. What they're looking for is people that are assertive, people that will go out of their way to wear more hats, that will put in more effort, that will try, that will dig, that will push, that will pull, but that will do it all in a respectful manner as well too. I have a student right now inside of a very, very large organization that is about 90 days into her tenure at her first job, and she is at like 400% of quota, not on a ramp. And she said, there's an AE role available. I don't think I should try for it though yet. And it just drives me nuts to hear that, because I think that we have to have self-belief, and we have to remember that it's not an entry-level role. It's a very important role. And if you're really good at it and you want something more inside of the organization, such as to go and start closing accounts instead of just setting up appointments with them, ask for it. Be assertive in those moments, and get to that desired state that you would like to achieve in the first place, instead of sitting in mediocrity and just kind of going through the motions thinking, well, maybe one day someone will say, hey, have you thought about applying for a higher position? Or saying, oh, well, now that I have 2 years, I can apply for a different position. Those things are falsities.
That's awesome, Dale. I love that you said, coaches versus managers. We're a big organization around being leaders, leading by example, and that's exactly what we look for in our SDR team. We'll hire SDRs that have no sales experience, no college degrees. We look for characteristics in people, and then when you come aboard as an SDR here at Seamless, as soon as we identify immediately that you check these boxes, we put you in our AE and training program immediately. I've had people that have came to Seamless that had zero sales experience, just graduated college, broke SDR records their first 30 days, and I immediately approached them and put them in as an AE, and guess what they did as an AE? Broke records as an AE in the first 30, 90, and so on. And we pretty much promote internally, and a lot of organizations should behave this way, because you're going to find really top talent, as Dale mentioned. And once you identify them, you don't hold back all-stars. So you guys have the opportunity to come in as an SDR, take control immediately, learn from the best, put in the work, put up those numbers, and then ask for that next spot, because that's what we look for as leaders. And when you come in and do that, we identify you, and we actually promote SDRs to multiple departments in the company, and we want to do it as fast as possible. So Dale hit a lot of that on the head. There's no reason to doubt yourself. If you have the intangibles, you have them. And once they're identified by the right leadership, they will give you the opportunity that you created for yourself. They're not giving you anything, but they're going to recognize that, and you can take that opportunity that you deserve for sure.
I love the idea that it's an entry-level job, but still not the bottom of the totem pole. Like those two things don't have to be in tandem. Love that. The number 4 mistake we're talking about today is only utilizing phone and email in their outreach methods. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so somebody already threw down a comment in here in the comment section about getting crumpled letters out. So shout out to Chris. What's up, Chris? I have a very strong feeling about this identity of a sales rep in general, but an SDR particularly, thinking that the only weapon of choice that they have as a sales rep or as in their function is to use the phone and to sit on email all day. There is so much more to, there's a vast amount of tools that can be used that we kind of check out of. And one of those is your personal brand, being able to develop who you are authentically as a person that people will buy from and want to set appointments with and want to help to build the success of as well too, is extremely important. So I created a brand called the Copier Warrior back when I was first getting started inside of my industry, and it exploded because I wasn't just Dale anymore. I was this very, very, very creative creature inside of an industry that was very boring and very stale and very bland. And I'm not telling you that you have your personal brand has to be creative and it has to be loud and outlandish and over the top. But what I am saying is that it differentiates you. It helps people to see a difference in the process of vetting you, in the process of understanding you better, in the process of seeing your product and service, and knowing that they're not just buying into this thing for $59 a month or for $50,000 for the next 5 years, right? But instead they see that there's a person attached to this that has my best interest in mind, and their personal brand is what's carrying that reputation for them, that they recognize in those moments that this is somebody that I can trust with my business processes, with this particular need that I have, and on top of that, using that personal brand in multiple facets to get the message out, whether that's social media, whether you're going and doing, micro groups like networking in person, since we can do that again now, or doing some kind of panel discussion like this, or some kind of speaking gig for yourself as well too, to talk about your experiences, to be able to give your opinion on things, whether you're introverted or extroverted. I don't think any of these things matter either. Anybody that's sitting there thinking, this seems like a lot and I can't do all this. Well, if you want to be a top 1% producer, I was recognized nationally as one of the highest selling copier reps in the United States by manufacturers. I didn't get there because I sat around in my office all day and sent emails and made phone calls. I was very personable with people. I was out in the field. I was in everybody's face all the time in a very positive way, in a postured way, right? I wasn't overly aggressive and pushing my way into things. I was just present, and I was present in the right moments. And that's what it's all about. The other side of it too is that we have a lot of tools that we use inside of the Rebellion, but there's multiple ways to be able to do these kinds of things, such as this letter right here that we call the coffee stain letter, that you send to a guy like Mike, as a VP of revenue, and you tell him like, hey man, 90% of the marketing that comes across your desk is usually trash. And so you're probably wondering why there's a coffee coaster on this. Well, I made you, or a coffee stain. I made you a coffee coaster so that, you can remember me day in and day out, and you don't have to just chuck this crappy marketing piece that you're getting. And then it expands into thought, and it expands into the psychology of a human in the moment of having an interaction that interrupts the pattern that they're typically used to having. So they're typically used to picking up the phone saying hello after they see a weird number and hearing, hey, this is so-and-so, how's it going? And instead they get this weird letter that's all crumpled up or has a burn on it or a coffee stain, and tells them, I know what it's like to deal with salespeople. And so I wanted to accommodate you, and I wanted to speak my truths in these moments and also hear you in the moment. This concept that we forget in sales of seeing other people, right? Because in sales, we like to talk a lot about like, we help companies with, and we can do X, and the benefits of using our products are Y. But instead, what's the story of the person that we're trying to reach to begin with? And if we start to think outside of the box around concepts like that, then we think outside of the box of the phone and the email. And we start to understand that there's more to sequencing, there's more to building relationships, there's more to the whole process to begin with. And when you do that, you hit that 1%, in regards to your outcomes. And that's what it's all about.
That's awesome, Dale. I agree. Being creative can take you really far and set yourself apart from a lot of people. And I also think using a multi-channel outreach approach makes sense a lot of the times. And also what makes sense is who you're selling to, the product you're selling, your sales cycle, the price point of it. Certain channels, in my opinion, are going to perform better in certain situations than others. And there's always an opportunity to leverage everything at your fingertips. Like when we launched our company, our content that we were generating drove a lot of interest in our business, and it was coming from professional content. But then, we're a high transactional product with a very short sales cycle, and we sell to sales leaders. So when we use the phone and we call sales leaders, they love it. It's very refreshing for them because a lot of salespeople today don't make as many calls as they used to. So when we target that persona, the phone works great. And like, man, I'm glad you called me. I wish I could get my team to make more calls like that. Certain other personas hate the phone. They don't want to be bothered, especially if you have a long sales cycle and you're selling into the enterprise, creating that long play, the long game, leveraging, social media, following them, commenting on their posts and their tasks, and making yourself known. Like, that's going to be more effective than just a cold call without knowing much about their business. And I think that strategy changes for the salesperson, the product, who you're targeting, when you're targeting. And for me, at the end of the day, like if you take two of the best salespeople in the world, they both know their product, they both know their competition, they both know their ideal client personas, and they have everything figured out. They study game film, they practice, they know their metrics, they know what kind of ground they need to cover. How does one of them edge out the other? And at the end of the day, for me, it comes out to activity. What I know Dale talked about when he was full stack. I started my career full stack in broadcast media with a bunch of veteran salespeople, and they all had big books of business. And you know what my book of business was? And this is dating myself. It was a phone book. And they threw it on my desk. They said, do a good job or you're fired. We took it out of college. And what did I do? I went through that phone book and I made more calls. When I say more calls, I made literally 300x more calls than any other salesperson that I worked with. They were all better salespeople than me at the time, but I was, literally 5xing their quota every month. And people started coming to me and asking me how I did it. And I just did it by I figured out a way, honestly, to just be more efficient with my day and get in front of more people faster. And then, that's one piece of it. There's everything else that comes with it. Understanding the person you're calling, their pain, having a reason to call them. There's a lot of things I could go into on why that was effective. But when you break it all down and you've done all those things and you're at the top of your game, that's the one thing as an SDR that could help you take you further, is figure out what channel works best for you and really double down on it.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, and the fifth mistake that we're going to talk about today, and then we might have time for a couple questions. Thinking transactionally and not constructing a long game approach.
Yeah, I think this kind of just in general, like people that are successful, that have the principles, of someone that's playing the long game, that takes the mindset of a servant leadership attitude, takes themselves out of the equation to an extent from that perspective, and puts the people that they're trying to serve and the communities that they're trying to break into at the forefront. And playing the long game can be tough. It can be something that, as you sit back and you're 2 or 3 years into it, you'll want to give up in some instances. I remember feeling that way multiple times, but then, you start breaking every record without all of the intensity of the hard work, right? So what I mean by that is, like Mike just talked about, you put a whole bunch of energy and effort into what it is that you're putting out there at the beginning of your career, because the whole thought process is that you can build something sustainable by doing that. And once you have that sustainability, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, those opportunities just expand inside of the network that you've created, inside of the effort that you've already given, inside of the things that you've already produced. And if you have the mentality of, the long term in mind and not the transactional concepts of, oh, well, this deal is going to make me $100,000. I'm going to just blitz to the finish line as fast as I can, cash that check, and then move on. Well, that same deal could make you $1 million long term if you stuck with it, is the thought process. So I think that in the world of the SDR, it is very much just like day to day, and every 30 days, it's why aren't you at quota? And so you have to have this perspective of, it's okay that I'm not at quota this month, I'm going to be at it next month. And remembering that every little moment is part of an effort toward the long term that you're trying to build for yourself. And that a little bit of failure here and there is a good thing. It helps you to learn and understand what it looks like to create and build success in the first place. These are things I won't be doing any longer, which also goes toward that concept of the long game and what it is that we're trying to get out of it to begin with.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dale. Yeah, there's two different long games for me. If I'm depending on what type of SDR I am and what product I'm selling, my approach is going to change a little bit on that. I talked to someone the other day. They literally only had 5 people that they could sell to. That's their universe. And their deals take at least 2 years. So that's an extremely long game of relationship building. It's going to be a much different strategy than one of my SDRs that's selling an SMB. And we have, a 3-day, 1-week sales cycle. And they're, a low price point. They're going to cover more ground. They're going to get in. It's really timing based for them. We've already identified that you have a need for our service. That's the biggest part for me at the top of the funnel. That's probably one of the most critical things, is having the right list of not just cold calling, but people that for a fact have a need for your product or your service. For a fact that ideal client persona could use it. You already know what their pain is, because that pain translates across all VPs of sales that I know that we sell into. So we've already identified that. And then it comes down to a timing thing oftentimes. But if you're selling to the enterprise, even with the same product, that strategy changes again, because that timing and that sales cycle is much longer, very extended, different personas, different people that you're going to interact with, and you're going to play a much longer game. So that's going to dictate your activity level, the channels that you're leveraging, the timing involved with it. And that's, obviously something that you'll figure out in that role. And if you have great leaders, they'll probably have mapped out for you ahead of time. And then Dale mentioned, the when you make a sale, as you go from an SDR into that AE role, that's where it really starts, because you want to be a long-term partner with your customers. You want to grow with them. We do a lot of landing and expanding and a lot of growth with the people that we work with. And that service really starts there, because you want to ensure that they're absolutely successful with your product. So you're going to maintain that long-term relationship and be available as a resource for them.
Great. I think we have a little time for a couple questions, and then if you guys have any closing remarks. But one here that just came in regards to doubling down on what works for you. I've almost hit my yearly quota with tactics outside of calls. My vertical tends to be less receptive to cold calls. How do I communicate this to management if they're imposing call volume? Any advice there?
For me, if you're leading the team and you're doubling your quota, I think hopefully your leaderships recognize that this is something they need to heavily consider, not only for you, but duplicating across the rest of your team. I think that would be the easy conversation for me, is say, hey, I understand you want me to do this, but look at the results that I've generated. What's more important to you, for me to follow a very rigid process or to get you the results that you asked me to get you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a great statement that Mike makes. And I think too often we make those statements, though, to leadership, and then leadership comes back and says, yeah, cool, do the calls.
Yeah.
and so I think it's Day is how you pronounce your name. I just want to tell you that I feel for you, that there's a community of rebels that have your back. It's why I started this company, because I want to give people like you a voice, because there are leaders, and Mike sounds like one of them, by the way, that would hire you in a heartbeat, because of the things that you're doing from the perspective of the success you're creating. And so just remember that it might feel a little lonely inside of the organization. It might feel that you're not being heard, but you are seen, you are heard. I've given you that validation now in this moment, and I'm telling you that you're doing the right thing. And I would take Mike's advice on having that conversation, but I would be prepared for defeat. I would be prepared for letdown, is probably the better way to say it. Not so much defeat, but letdown. And just understand that some people aren't going to ever see it your way, and that's okay. Because there's more people out here that are your tribe that will take you on, lock arms with you and take you up on the offer of doing what you've done for this organization at theirs.
Yeah, make your case, but depending on the organization, you might get a positive or a less positive response.
They got to love those results, so keep generating those results.
Yeah. Another question here, sort of related, which personas respond well to cold calls and which personas don't, in your experience? So that could be kind of part of that argument for day too.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for the last 6 years, I've been heavily selling into sales leaders and marketers. So I know that they especially sales leaders love calls, especially if you're really good at it. They're probably going to offer you a job every time you call one and you do a good job. So they definitely respect the hustle because that's what they do and that's what they teach. I don't know if Dale has a lot of experience selling into a lot of other personas recently that he could chime in on. But in the past, that's a great question. I don't want to say any specific title hates cold calls, but I think if you've been doing your role long enough and you've executed multi-channel, you're probably starting to figure out what they respond best to. And that's where, again, you can see where you're getting the best results and double down on that.
Yeah, so it looks like you're with a company that's doing debt collection, and I can't tell just from doing a little bit of quick research on you here if it's in the B2B space or the B2C space, but I'm sure that you're probably dealing with B2B organizations, and I would tell you that you just got to be very open to the identity of what outbound truly is as a whole, which is that it is something that people are inundated with on a daily basis. Okay, they get hundreds of thousands of emails a month. They get hundreds of thousands of emails a month. They get dozens and dozens of calls per week. And you just got to think less about the persona and more about, because that can be an excuse. And I want you to understand that, Kelsey, don't make an excuse around the persona, because even if I were to say, yeah, here's some personas not to call, to dial on, that doesn't mean you shouldn't dial on them, right? I always tell people, even though I'm not one that subscribes to the 150 dials a day concept, doesn't mean that I don't believe in it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work for other people. You have to understand that what truly will bring you the right outcomes is the activity itself. So think less of the persona. Think about the persona when you're in the conversation. And when you know that typically this person that works inside of this type of organization that holds this title is usually very extroverted, very loud, very boisterous, very numbers driven, very whatever the case may be based on data that you can collect on your own. And that's where I would tune my conversations around the identity of, if they don't like cold calls, I'm going to figure out how to make this fun for them. I'm going to figure out how to make it an experience for them. I'm going to figure out how to interrupt their typical patterns and get them captivated by what's happening in this moment. But I will tell you that I love and always lead with the idea and identity of doing something that creates a first impression before I ever pick up the phone and dial on somebody. Unless you're in an environment, again, where you need to be dialing all the time and you are more of a commodity product. Because remember, I did sell copiers for a long time. And so for a certain amount of time, I was doing a lot of mass dialing and mass cold knocking. But at a certain point, you got to stop in regards to what it is that you're trying to get out of it, right? Because you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. At a certain point, you have to recognize that you've built something and that you've got to approach it differently. So think more from the perspective of long-term goals and what you're trying to achieve than just the persona of the person you're calling on.
That's awesome, Dale. And just to add to that, one of the things that helps me and helps our SDRs make a lot of cold calls and be tenacious is if you've identified that you're going to help this person, you're going to help their business, you have a big solution for them, that'll once you have that reason to call them, you'll be less apt to worry if you should cold call them in the first place. It's kind of like if you have a sick friend and you have medicine for your friend, you're going to do everything you can to try to get them to take it. And if you believe in your product and you believe in what you're doing, you can call that person 10 times. You can get them on the phone. You can be excited and have passion around that they're going to resonate with if you really have something that's going to help them out. And anytime you have something that will truly help someone out, they should respond positively to that effort if you can, convey that to them when you connect with them.
Mm-hmm. Great. We're a little over, but I wanted to give you each a chance to kind of wrap up. If there's anything else you wanted to add or comment on, Mike, do you want to go first?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. Dale was awesome, and love the content, dude. Love the tips that you provided, and the coffee stain letter, the crumpled letter, man. I think that's awesome. Just got to plug Seamless here. Anyone that's looking for an opportunity, we are hiring SDRs. So if you think you're a fit or know someone that's looking, like as I mentioned in passing earlier, no college education required, no sales experience required. We have world-class training here. And if you're the right fit from the characteristics that we're looking for, we'll give you a big opportunity. So I just want to thank everyone again for tuning in, and really appreciate being here.
Thanks, Mike. Teal.
Mike, awesome meeting you, spending time on this cool fireside chat with you. Hannah, thanks for narrating. Everybody in the audience, including Richard Harris, especially Richard Harris, really appreciate your time. I believe that time is the most important thing that we can give to one another. And so you giving me yours today is very appreciated. And I just want you to know that. If you want to learn more about the Sales Rebellion, feel free to just Google my name or the Sales Rebellion itself. We got a free Slack channel. We got a lot of really cool assets like the crumpled letter you can find online. But I do want to say that we have a launch party on July 1st. If you've never been to a Rebel Rally or one of our parties, you definitely want to come. It's a lot of fun, but we're also introducing a first of its kind platform, gamification and sales, on a monthly subscription concept that is a literal world that we built inside of the Sales Rebellion with challenges, lots of fun stuff. I'd love to see anybody there that wants to come out and get a sneak peek on July 1st, virtually eat some hot dogs with us. And if you're in the Florida area, we're also doing an in-person version of the event as well too. So just find me on the internet or go to our website. You can find most of this information, or just get in touch with us and we'll give you links.
Love it. Virtual hot dogs. Thanks,
That sounds
Dale.
really good.
Thank you both so much for your time as well. And everyone enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Cheers.